are back. Well, hello, everybody. It is so good to be back here in the TPV studios. It has been quite a while. I have missed everybody. As you can see, Michael John is not with me tonight, but you know what? He is recovering from yesterday. He had all part of the NCG wrestling show. Michael John was out there doing his thing, just killing it like Michael John does, or should we say, AKA Irish Bobby Clancy. So he is recovering for today. So we will see Michael John back hopefully as soon as we possibly can. He is off and running, folks. During our off time, we've been doing so many crazy things, and Michael John has been just busy doing his thing. So, you know what? The show must go on, and we love our Michael John. We appreciate our Michael John, and like I said, I look forward to having him back on our by my side as soon as he possibly can. So, but with that, in the meantime, you guys are absolutely stuck with me. The TPV Nation, I just want to say thank you so much. We are now going to be celebrating. This is going to be our fourth year on the air, which is pretty exciting for me and Michael John. Like 4 years, we've been doing what we do, doing what we love to do, and we're looking forward to a great 2025 season. We were speaking just up at Pottergrass back at the beginning of March, which was a true honor to be a part of that. Thank you once again to Tim and uh, I can't remember his wife's name. She's going to beat me. But thank you to those guys so much for having the Paranormal Voice come out to Potographs right here in Holt Lake, Michigan. It was such an amazing event, raised so much money for the local animal shelter. It was such a privilege, and we look forward to hopefully be back again next year up at Holt Lake, Michigan. I know it's going to be a 2-day event next year, so if you want details on that show, Potographs, Murray's Legacy, just go over to potographsforpooches.com and get all the details and that all the upcoming events too. I know they're going to be in Gettysburg here very shortly. So if you want to meet up with Tim and Lauren, that's her name, Lauren. Just check them out. They're going to be at Gettysburg, and they've got a few other things that are happening around. I know they're going to be up at Ashmore Estates as well, doing photographs. So, like I said, check out that. Go and help raise lots of funds for the local animal shelters, which is an absolutely fantastic thing to do. We love our animals here at the TPV Nation. So, without that, guys, like I said, I'm just so happy to be back on the airwaves. It's been such a great 2024 was such a great year for us. And my guest tonight is a girl that I've been following on social media for quite a while. And then I was very blessed to do an event with my good friends up at Black Moon Paranormal. They held an event this year just outside of Muskoka. It was a really cool event, and I've got to finally meet this young lady who I've been following for a while. She is a local. She is Canadian, which it is. We're always blessed when we can support local Canadian talent right here on our show because it is, it is nice. We love our American friends. We love our American family. We love everybody who we get to talk to. But when we can bring a little bit of Canadian flavor to the show, because once for all, we are Windsor, Ontario's own paranormal voice. We love to do that. So this young lady who I'm going to bring on, she's been a medium for as long as she can remember at a very, very young age. She's been on a couple of well-known paranormal shows. She's been a part of those. We're going to talk about that. She is also part of she's a dedicated member of the Canadian Supernatural Research Society team. We're going to talk about that and a whole lot more right now. I want you to introduce to the TPV studios my friend, Miss Katie Turner. How you doing?
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic, and thank you so much for coming on the show. Talk about
Well,
who you are, and we always love sprinkling a little bit of maple flavor on our show. And here you are, one of our very own Canadian sweethearts. Uh,
you?
We got Heidi. Heidi, thank you for joining the show. Thank you so much. And if anybody has a question for Katie out there, please just tap it into the comments. Highly, bold cap it if you can, and I'll make sure that Katie will answer your questions.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, I was telling the people is that we actually got to meet finally this past November up just outside of Muskoka. We were
Yeah.
part of an event which was really amazing and an amazing location too. Pretty active in there, even while there was everybody or was around us. I was picking up a lot of stuff while I was in there. So, but yeah, no, I've been following you for quite a while on social media, and it's just one of those things. It's nice when you finally get to meet people you're friends with on social media because you never know when you're going to meet people.
No, exactly. And you know what? That was such a cool event. As you said, I mean, you couldn't get more active. It was mind-boggling the amount of activity that happened. But it was really cool that it was a really cool home environment.
Yes.
Everybody was family. Everybody came together. We were able to work together and laugh together and experience together. And that's the way paranormal should be. So I was really blessed to be able to finally meet you in person. Yeah, it was a good time. I hope we do it again next year.
Yes, yes, yes. I really hope they do another event because, like I
Yeah,
said, it was far different than any other paranormal type of convention that I'm
exactly.
used to being a part of. It was a lot smaller, really intimate, and like I said, the location itself could not have been any more well picked out for this type of event, and the hotel staff there were super nice. Like I said,
Yeah,
everybody there was super, super friendly. And what I got a kick out of is they actually had a Santa Claus Day parade while we were there, and Santa Claus was going through town in a back of a fishing boat.
right. Can't get more Canadian than that.
The only thing I could ever think was if you put him on the back of a moose, but for that area, knowing for the fishing history and the water, like that was so fitting for that neighborhood, and it was just so cool that that was happening around the same time as we were all there doing our thing.
Yeah, big
But
shout out to Black Moon Paranormal. They did a killer job.
oh
They did
yeah,
a
yeah,
killer job.
yes, no, all those ladies did a fantastic job putting this together. The guest list was amazing. They had a little bit of everything, and it was so nice. And like I said, I love those smaller, intimate type of events because you really feel then you get a chance to know the people who are attending them. Whereas when you're at these big, huge events where there's thousands of people, it's really hard to get to know people or find
Mm,
what people's interests are. It's because you feel like you just don't have enough time because you only get to spend mere seconds with them. And
exactly.
so I like these, and like I said, it was perfect. The crowd, the people who attended, were truly amazing as well. Uh,
Yeah,
so with that in mind, let's dive right down into it.
yeah.
Let's talk about your journey into this. When did you realize that you were given a gift?
You know what? It started even before I can recollect. Actually, my parents have stories of things I used to tell them before I even remember. But long story short, I grew up on a haunted farm, and as a young child, I started having really intense experiences, and I couldn't understand them. My whole family's sensitive, so they're very open, and I'm very blessed. My family's very open, and so I was, you know, it wasn't something that was shushed or shunned or turned off. They encouraged it, and so I started having experiences when I was young, and they got more and more and more. And then when I got into high school, I started to realize that I wasn't like the rest of my friends, and it kind of springed into when I was in college. I wanted to understand it a little bit more, and so I started going to haunted locations and trying to document it. I was doing research. I was trying to understand. I actually London, Ontario. I had lived in London for a couple of years, and we were going to haunted places, and I was just trying to prove that I wasn't crazy to myself. And so I started going to these places and documenting it, and audio and video. And fast forward into my adulthood, and I had a career in real estate, and I used to train horses, and that was kind of my thing. And at that time, I decided I wanted to start to help people. I didn't need to prove paranormal existed anymore. I knew it did, but I didn't want people to feel isolated. I grew up in a really small community, very close to where the event was held. And, I understood how isolating it feels when you have a situation like this and you don't know who to call. You don't know how to get the
Right.
help because, let's face it, people may think you're crazy.
Right.
So I started the paranormal team. And, people would give us a call and they would ask us to come in. As the psychic medium, I go in and I do my walk around. I get my feels of what I could pick up. And then we would set up equipment, and my team and I would do an investigation and kind of correlate the evidence to see what I picked up versus what the evidence picked up.
Right.
Well, long story short, people started coming into my office every day asking me for readings, my real estate office. And at first, I often tell
Wow.
people, no, I'm not into doing readings.
Right.
But the universe wanted it. And so here I sit. I never grew up thinking that I was going to be, a paranormal investigator and a psychic medium, but this is kind of how my journey's led to me. So for me, this is really, I really want to help people. And, it led me doing podcasts and television and radio and all that stuff. And I just want to spread the word to people so that they don't feel isolated. I mean, it's a very mainstream thing now. I think there's more people that accept it than don't, but there are those that still are very afraid of it or they don't have an understanding of it. And I
Right.
want them to feel comfortable. I don't want people to feel powerless. So if I can educate
Right.
people or I can share my experiences, give people closure or spiritual guidance, that's what I try to do.
And that's exactly what the paranormal voice is all about, is about educating people and
Mhm.
helping people to understand what it is it mean to be a psychic medium. What does it mean
Mhm.
to uh be an exorcist priest, or in all these different
Right.
forms. And the paranormal umbrella is such a huge umbrella as we go along and we discover the different aspects. So for those that are out there that are just new to the field, who are tuning in and wondering, like, what's the difference between, say, a psychic medium and other types of mediums that are out there? It's because not all mediums are the same. Like,
No.
different mediums have different talents and gifts, and they can do different things with them. They might be able to cross over a little bit into what each one does, but a lot of them, I find, they kind of seem to focus in on a set of skills that they've been working
Right.
on and stuff like that. So maybe you can help the audience just know, like, what's the difference between what you do and, say, just pick another type of medium type that's really well known out there.
Okay. So what I try to explain to people is that there's no one-on-one book, instructional manual on how to do psychic and mediumship work. Okay. Everybody is different. Uh, not, every medium is psychic, but not all psychics are mediums. Okay. I often call
Yeah.
myself a large, but, but um, so basically, a psychic is somebody who taps into timelines, past, present, future. They get pick up sensitivity. They have futuristic predictions, can see past events, past lives, and so on. Mediumship is where you can tap into people who have crossed over. So basically, you're able to communicate or pick up essences of spiritual activity, whether it be residual activity or whether it be intelligent. So for me, I have five main senses that I use. I'm clairaudient, clairvoyant, clairsentient, clairconscient, and I'm empathic. Those are my main antennas. Those are my strengths on how I download information, metabolize it, transmute it, and give it to, who I'm speaking
Right.
to. Um, but every psychic is different. Some psychics
Right.
are intuitive psychics, so they use more of their claircognizance. It's just the act of knowing.
Right.
And to go through the clairs, basically clairaudience is the act of hearing. So you hear spirit, okay. Clairvoyant is seeing, it's downloaded in your eye. Clairsentient is smelling and picking up those types of smells. Um, Claircognizant is the act of knowing. So it's that, you intuitively
Right.
just know the answer. And empathic abilities mean you pick up on symptoms, whether they be physical or metaphoric. So when I, read a client, I'll tell them not everything is literal. If I see a broken heart, that broken heart can mean you have a physical valve or you have something malfunctioning in that heart, or it can mean to me that you suffer from emotional heartbreak. But either way, you're picking up the emotion or the feeling, the physical feeling
Right.
of what you're seeing. I think every psychic medium is different on the planet. I don't think you're going to uh, get the same thing through everything, through, which no matter who you go to. Some people use different things to download. So some people use tarot cards, some people use dowsing rods. Some people will use pendulums, or like there's many different. There's scrying. There's all sorts of different ways to use that extension to download the information. So really, instead of looking at psychics as different, they just download the information a little bit differently.
Right. And that's the amazing part of the gifts that you have been given is the ability to really be able to tune in what's going on around you and to be able to pick up on one, is what I'm picking up a part of a living person or somebody from the other side? Because that I mean, you could, like you said, like you can pick up on somebody, they might be going through a health problem that they might not even know at this moment, but
Right.
something's telling you, like, this person's not well, and
Mhm.
and it's, but then you can pick up on somebody, like if you were in an investigation, if the person who happens to be still there, the
Mhm.
energy that is still in that room, could be somebody who had a heart attack, so you're feeling that heart attack from
Mhm.
somebody who's already passed. Uh, when you are in these type of situations, obviously, when you're investigating, there's not too many people around besides the people that you're investigating with. Of course, unless you're doing one of these public hunts,
Yeah,
which then you're throwing in like people that are you're not familiar with. And that
exactly.
I've always find is the tough one when you're sensing something, when you're picking up on energy or something that's happening, you're trying to figure out now, is this attached to somebody here, or is this actually from somebody who is is like passed on? Um, that to me is the more difficult part. I mean, I don't think of myself as a medium. I'm just purely I have to put tags on things is more of an empathic type of sense. I pick up on things, I feel things. And when I go
Mhm.
into an investigation, I try not to know as much because I want to know what I get as what I feel and then do the history a little bit later or talk to the people who are there and say, this is what I was picking up that happened in this room. Could you clarify something? And that's usually when I use my empathic abilities to use it to sense what's going on and attach myself to every energy that is in that room.
Yeah. You know what? I'm really lucky. I have this little thing that I would call it a magnet. It's magnetism. For me, it's almost like it's drawing me to a particular person or a particular room, or I feel drawn to it. And so
Right.
I've learned over the years that I can, I take a few baby steps and then I can feel more. I take a few baby steps, I feel more. It's like feeling your way in the dark. And so for me, I find that I can hone in on it. It took me years to understand how to do that, to kind of, transmute the information. But I like to think that I can kind of download in the direction I need to download it. There are times definitely that I am confused, whether
Right.
it's residual or whether it's, somebody in the room or somebody, you know, uh, in the haunting or a past event. But, just through kind of taking your time and asking more questions, you're going to get your answer.
Right.
I used
Yeah.
to be in a hurry to get the information. I used to be like, okay, what now? Tell me, what now? And download it quickly. And
Right.
it's like vacuuming a room really quick. The faster you do it, the more things on the ground you miss. You just take your time and
Right.
vacuum slowly. It's going to take a little bit more time, but you're going to get it all done the first time. So for me, I slow down a little bit, and I
Right.
take the time and I feel what I need to feel.
Right. So you said you grew up on a haunted farm, which I'm jealous of
I
anybody
did.
who's grew up in a haunted house because I mean, as much as I love the paranormal, and my first experience was in my house, but it
Mhm.
wasn't to say that it was haunted because it was the one time thing.
Right.
I never had experiences in that house. I never grew up with other people from the outside visiting me that weren't my family, which is the majority of what I get is my family coming
Oh,
over
cool.
to talk to me more than it is a complete stranger who is looking for help from the other side. I do get those, but they're not as common as in my place, my environment. But I also make this my safe, my protective place. I don't allow outside spirits in my house.
Very good.
Nothing's allowed to follow me here. I did have an incident back in 2018,
Mhm.
but that was like the one time only thing that ever happened to me in my house to a point where I was so scared I had to seek out the help of somebody to help me figure out why I was experiencing what I did. It was truly traumatic for me. It took me over a year, almost 2 years to even talk about my situation. That's how it affected me. And but yeah, it was quite crazy. Uh, but I lost my train of thought, sorry.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just, when you're connecting. So obviously, like your space, your house is off limits to spirits.
Yes, absolutely. I don't. So I tell people my day job is I'm a psychic medium. I do readings all day and I paranormal investigate at night. And I don't allow people into my home. I do readings all over the world. I'm very grateful that way. And I do them, online video as you and I are talking. But in terms of physically allowing anybody in the home, I try to avoid that because energy comes in. And I often explain to people that when you first move into a house and you clean that house, you want to disinfect it and make it yours.
Right,
That doesn't mean you never clean that house again because the mud comes in, the dirt comes in, the fly, everything, it builds up again. And so you have to have a constant method of cleaning the home.
right,
And the same thing goes for energy. If you're not keeping your energy clean, it's going to build up. And pretty soon it's overwhelming and pretty soon it gets dangerous. So for me, I try to avoid that. I try not to allow it into the home. I usually meet people out if I'm at, or go to them. And I do my due diligence. But, there are times like yourself that I have brought something home with me or I have had to deal with cleansings. I've worked on some big demonic cases where dioceses were involved and different religious members have been involved to try and help people or even get something off of me. It's affected family members of mine. Evil is very real and it's very dangerous. And I encourage people if they want to begin paranormal investigating, if they want to have an experience, don't do it in your home. You're
yeah,
you're
no,
literally turning a light on in a dark room and you're inviting all sorts of things in.
right,
When anybody does divination or example Ouija board, a lot of people say, "Oh, I don't touch a Ouija board, man." It's well, doing any form of communication
right,
is the same as a Ouija board. That's just the method you're using. So I
yeah,
always tell people have the active intent and who you wish to
right,
reach at that moment. When you pick up the phone to call someone, you don't randomly dial a number. You don't pick it up and just expect anybody to answer. You have intention of who you are calling. And
right,
so, when people who are not knowledgeable in this, we're all young at one point, we had to learn the hard way. I know I did. That it can be extremely dangerous. So if you want to have an experience, try to find somewhere that is known to be safe, known to be more of a higher energy, something that doesn't have malevolence in it, and try to have your experience. But make sure that you cleanse yourself and you come home with the intention of leaving it at the door when you get home.
Yeah, and like for me, my instance, I never even knew I had an attachment until
Yep.
it was well after the event had happened and I was already home. And it was just a reoccurring dream that I was having over and over again with
Hmm.
the same voices I heard while I was at this house telling me I
Yep.
shouldn't be there. But, and this is where experience does come into play. And
Hmm.
as paranormal investigators, unfortunately, there is no handbook that tells you how to deal with every type of situation that you're walking into. You hear the stories, you kind of know you kind of know the backstory, other things that have happened. But at the same time, you can never prepare yourself 100% for something you're walking into you've never been a part of before. And this is why I tell people when you go into a place that has a history of being very dark. I don't believe in demonic entities. I believe like there are scary things out there that are beyond our knowledge, but
Absolutely.
I think demons have way better things to do than to torture some poor soul for no reason whatsoever. There's always something, like somebody opened up something in that house. Somebody did
Hmm.
something in that house or brought something in that house that was never meant to be there, which has this evil attachment to it. But I'm sure you hear it as much as I hear it of, oh, as soon as something is bad, it's automatic dynamic or
Exactly.
and it's just like, stop watching Ghost Adventures and, just, realize people how they are in this life,
I
and I don't mean that, like, if you're a
hear
big
you.
fan of Ghost Adventures, my god, enjoy yourself, but realize, it's not the true story of everything. They can only have so much time to explain the whole part of what they're doing, but to get back to what I was saying, it's just like when people do things in homes, like use Ouija boards, intent is everything. And we cannot
Mhm.
say that word enough in this industry. Intent is everything. If you sit down with a Ouija board and you say, yeah, I'm going to try to connect with a demon, well, you're going to catch something evil. He might not
Mhm.
serve a demon, but you got to realize how you are in this lifetime is how you are in the other lifetime. So if you're a miserable old man over here, you're going to be a miserable old man over there. And it doesn't change. You don't get miserable just because you're dead, because a lot of these energies don't even know they're dead. Some of them, this is why they stick around. They have unfinished business. And that's why I believe places are haunted. People love their buildings, their houses so much that they never want to leave them, even in after
Mhm.
death. They want to stay there. So it's to grow up into like a haunted farm like yourself. Now, were the hauntings of people that lived in that house, or was it because of the land? Because energies can be attached to land as well, depending on what happened on that land.
Well, you know what? I do believe that it was from uh, many years before. I also feel that there was a lot of residual energy that I picked up in that house. I did have dreams. I did have, I remember waking up 8 years old and hearing conversations in the morning, thinking my parents were awake and I was awake above everybody. I call it the clock radio effect, where you can hear a radio or you can hear a conversation in another room, but you can't make it what they're saying.
Right.
And then there was a few events actually outside where one time I was fixing a fence line and the animals had broken the fence and I was crouched down mending the fence, and I looked up and I saw two children playing in the leaves with old period clothing on. They were throwing leaves up and laughing and joking. And I
Wow.
looked and I was in the middle of the bush, quite frankly. And I looked again, and I had to kind of understand what I was seeing. But it was the middle of July. There were no leaves. It wasn't the fall. And
Right.
so I was shown a period that, you know, At first, I thought it was residual, but then the children saw me and were startled, turned and ran and disappeared. Was that a time loop? Was that,
Right.
a blip in the space-time continuum? Was that, what was that? All I
Right.
know is that they saw me and I saw them. And I was quite taken aback by that because I didn't know how to understand that. I used to pick up a lot of feelings in the barn. And I used to hear talking. There was one instance where I was actually picked up and moved.
Yeah.
There was a few things. So, but it was normal. I mean, it was normal to kind of have that moment. And for me, when I when I started talking about it, when I became a teenager and started to realize, like, to my friends, like, well, you don't have instances like that, and they're like, no. That's when it started to dawn on me. I thought, okay, I'm a little different.
Y-
But
y-
yeah, I want to talk a little bit quickly about, you were talking about ghosts, or people being stuck here choosing to stay. I categorize death into two sections. I categorize ghosts and spirits, and I they're two different things to me. A ghost would be that earthbound entity that you talk about, that is either confused at death, didn't transition, didn't want to leave, had unfinished business, was afraid of judgment. Those are the ones that kind of walk around and haunt. And I find they're the possessive ones. Sometimes they're kind, but
right.
they don't want to cross over, or they're afraid to cross over. And then
Right.
there's spirits. Spirits are people that have transitioned, and they're really not grandpa anymore, but the essence of grandpa comes back. Because really,
Right.
we're only I'm Katie in this life. I'm not Katie in the past life or the life to come. I'm only Katie
Right.
in this life. This is my meat
Right.
suit. So
Right.
I often tell people that, uh, this life, okay, the universe is a book of short stories. And
Right.
when you're done reading that short story, you don't forget it, but that book, that chapter is finished. And so you start your new chapter when you come and you're reincarnated again. So a lot of these spirit people that are coming back and showing love and having conversations and wanting to make contact really aren't those people anymore, but the essence of that old story is still there.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And when energies come back, like,
Mhm,
people say, well, can they come back and forth? And I'm like, well, yeah. I mean,
mhm,
they can come and go as they please, is once they
mhm,
figure it all out. I mean, it's just
mhm,
like us learning through life. They have to learn a whole new set of skills until, you know, the energy that was once them gets reincarnated, and then it's a thirst for knowledge. I think Dustin Perry says it best: is we are all just here for an earth experience, and then we move
exactly.
on, and the life just keeps wanting more and more life. And this is why when we get into things like deja vu, for instance,
Mhm,
people are always asking, like, what's a deja vu? Because it when you experience deja vu, it is one of those that it feels like a time and a place you've been here before. You don't know why it looks so familiar, but like, in this life, you've never been here before. But at some point, maybe your energy that is now running your body has experienced something in this very similar situation or place, which makes it feel so familiar that you just know you don't know it, but at the same time, you feel like it's so familiar with you. And it's just,
mhm,
I think at that moment, and I think it was best described in Mike Richter book, Time Travel, is he says, like, there is alternate universes always constantly in motion, and
mhm,
at some point, and where you said that you saw the children playing with the leaves, they saw you. I think at that very moment, that was one of those, the two dimensions crossed at the same time,
mhm,
where you saw them, they saw you, and it was just like in shock for both people. But for that brief moment, the worlds aligned up for that brief moment, and this is when you see this happening in real time. They're not there, and poses a question that a lot of people say, well, at that moment, are we ghosts to them?
Well,
Because
yeah,
it's two parallel universes coming together. So you wonder if they think that we are a ghost looking back at us.
I believe in a couple things. I believe deja vu is um, your higher level of consciousness, and it's remembering what you've written for yourself, only you don't realize you forgot because we have amnesia when we get reincarnated. So, it's kind of remembering those milestones. Those are moments that you're supposed to kind of go, huh, what's happening here? And oftentimes when we have that deja vu moment, there was big contemplation that had happened, or there was a major conversation or a major decision making moment. It's a synchronicity.
Yeah.
Going back to talking about the child, I, you know, I believe time is an illusion. I think it's a perception. I often
Well, it
talk
is.
about when you think about what's happening in, our time frame right now, Standard Eastern Time, but
Right.
what's happening in China. They're how many hours ahead of us, but we're
Right.
we're speaking simultaneously, and so that's a great kind of example of time being a perception.
Right.
Virtually, we're talking to the future every minute.
Right.
So how far does that go? How
Right.
far, when you remove that physical consciousness and you are in that spiritual consciousness, there's no such thing as time. And maybe perhaps my consciousness was able to tap into that time frame, and that's how I was able to see. Is it really a vision coming to you or coming to the psychic as a person, or is it really that psychic's opening up their consciousness and going to that time and
Right.
space, that they're able to
Right.
capture that photograph or that picture or that video to
Right.
to see it? I believe
Right.
energy is something that is co-current and it's constantly moving. And
Right.
so we're able to kind of use our antennas, tap into that timeline, and see what's happening at that moment.
Yeah. No, and yeah, no, and I mean, after reading Mike Rick Sector's book,
Mhm.
really time is a man-made thing. There is no such thing as time. Time doesn't even exist. Man made that up just so that we can give ourselves, I guess, a direction. Oh, I have to be somewhere by 4 o'clock. But if time
Mhm.
doesn't really exist, well, what is 4 o'clock? But we make that 4 o'clock as our own way of dealing with everyday life, a punch clock, so we know how much we get paid. Time's not a real thing. We rely on it so much to get through everyday life, and it's really amazing how something that truly doesn't exist, we make it exist. But if it all went away tomorrow, it would be like, what would people think in their heads? And it would always be an interesting concept. It's like kind of going out into camping in the woods and you're out there for days. If you didn't have a watch, you wouldn't know what day it was. You don't know unless you just mentally told that to yourself every day. But it's really, you would lose track of time. And I mean, how many people that are retired sometimes they go, "Well, I don't know what day it is." Well, it's because they don't have to live by a clock anymore. They don't have to live by a day. They just got to wake up and they know, well, it's the next day. Well, what is that next day? And after a while, they might go, well, last time I checked, it was Wednesday. Well, what do you mean it's Saturday? It's like, where did the rest of the week go? We do have one question here for you from Joanne Stewart. She
Mhm.
asks, Katie, have you crossed people over?
That's a really great question, actually. In my opinion, it's an ignorant assumption that's a human can tell somebody, all right, time to go, get out, time to cross over. Um, I have never crossed anyone over, but I have made those who are unaware that they are dead or they even have the ability to cross over. I've tried to make them aware of it, and it's up to them at that point if they choose to cross over. Many do. So
Right,
I really kind of bring awareness to them and just kind of explain. I've done investigations with my team, and we've got an audio that's we'll ask questions and we'll get EVPs. I'll say one of my investigators said, do you know what year you died?
right,
And we got a response saying, I'm dead. They didn't even understand it. They didn't know. And
Right.
so we explained it to them, and it was like, that they were out, they were gone. They were ready to cross.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Right.
there have been many instances where they have crossed over, but I can't say it was, I said, all right, off you go.
Right. I mean, I have done some of those cases as well. And the most recent one was a guy who was murdered in, well, it's now the basement of this house.
Mhm,
But he kept roaming the house because I don't, well, it was the sense that he was looking for whoever did this to them,
mhm,
and two, like, just pacing around. And when we explained to him that the person they were looking for is not here anymore, that they're long gone and crossed over, and that it was their time now to move on if they choose to. And the client said, like, after all of that, like, no more, they didn't hear the pacing around the house. They
mhm.
like, the house quieted down because this
Good
person was
word,
looking
that.
for somebody, not knowing that they weren't coming back, because at this chance, like, this was a murder that happened in the, I think it was the early 50s, late 40s, early 50s. So we're thinking this guy has to be long gone by now. He's
Right.
so you're not going to find who you're looking for. So if you don't want to be here, everybody's waiting for you over there. So please go join family.
Exactly.
And usually when I take care of these kids, that's what I do. It's like, just talk to them and just make them
Yep.
realize, yeah, they are the ones who are ultimately going to make that choice. There are some that do still don't want to leave, that they're like I said, those are the ones that are attached to something that they love so much that they
Mhm.
do not want to let go of it no matter what. And when people are saying, "Oh, I bought this house, it was 100 years old. I started renovating and all this weird shit started happening." I'm like, "That's because the former owner is not happy you're redesigning his house."
Exactly. Mhm,
I said, he's not mean, he's not malicious, he's not a demon. He's just upset because he can't understand why there's people who are destroying his house,
mhm.
and it's just, they're like, "Oh, so can he leave?" I said, "Probably if he chooses to." I said, "But
Exactly.
really, he loves this house. He's probably built this house with his own hands. This is why he loves it so much."
Yeah.
Which, a lot of people, if you look through history, people didn't pay people to build their houses. People built their own houses, and they loved those things with their lives. So they
Yep, and
always vowed that they will never leave this place.
yep. My
But
favorite are the cases with the new builds. It's a brand new house and things are flying across the room and they're saying, "But it's a new house." Well, you don't know what was there 500 years ago. You don't know what was there 100 years ago.
right, and that's what people don't understand, how something can be attached to the land. It has nothing to necessarily do with the house
Mhm,
itself. You could take, for instance, the Zach Bagans demon house. Like, there was so many really bad negative things. Like, they've long knocked down that house, and I'm like, but do they realize that they build something on top of it, it could potentially come
mhm.
back in that house because it's attached to the property, not the house itself. That just
Got it.
happens. Like, it's like our energy. Our energy is not attached to our meat suit. When this meat suit dies, it's still going, and it's going to attach itself to something else.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. Think energy is something that cannot be destroyed. It's changed. And if something wants to be there long enough, it will, whether it attaches to an object, a person, a place. There example, somebody made that house, that demon house might have been torn down and pieces were moved across the country, and there's still energy attached to the piece of that, whether it's a board or a couch or a window. And you're opening Pandora's box because if the energy is strong enough, it'll take a long time to dissipate.
absolutely. I mean, that's something that is commonly heard of. And this is how we go into an antique shop, we buy something and we bring it home and it has an attachment to it, right?
Exactly.
So
Mhm,
it's the same thing. If an energy will attach itself to anything and everything that it loves.
mhm.
So let's move on and talk a little bit about your appearances. So you were on two of what I believe is one of the two of the most popular paranormal shows, Paranormal Survivor and My
Yeah,
Paranormal Nightmare, which are two really great shows. Both are on
thank you.
A&E, I believe, or History.
Yep.
I can't remember which ones they are on. So talk about how you got involved with these programs, and what the experience was like.
You know what? I gotta say, it was a really cool experience. I was with Paranormal Survivor for all 5 seasons. It actually started. The producers contacted me. I've never kind of reached out. Television was not something that I was like, yeah, I want to be a part of. I didn't have
Right.
any desire. And they actually reached out to me and asked me if, I had, any stories. They wanted stories. And I said, well, I have some stories. I can share. I'm not sure if that's something that you like or whatever, but I'll explain. And so um, the first story was actually of a Canadian soldier that had a really scary experience in this home on one of the bases here in Ontario. And I had taken them through the process of all of that, of the investigation we did. And after the first season, they actually contacted me and said, Katie, we think you're really knowledgeable. Would you be interested in coming and staying with us as a paranormal expert? And I don't like the word expert. I don't think there's any experts in this field. I think we're all learning, we're
Right.
all
Yeah.
students. But I said, I can certainly try. I said, I'll do my best, but please, I'm not an expert. And they said, no,
Right.
really knowledgeable. We'd really like you to be a part of the show. And so I agreed. And 5 seasons later, it was a beautiful experience. I can honestly say that a lot of the paranormal shows are all about entertainment. Okay. But I can
Yeah.
honestly say that every episode that I was a part of in all those seasons were as real as they possibly could be in terms of recollecting the events that happened. There was no exaggeration. There was no, I can honestly say where they were true events. I mean, I was
Right.
there, like they were true events. And so I was blessed to be a part of that. I don't believe in selling out. And then My Paranormal Nightmare was another really good one. And it was more of that scary factor. And, I enjoyed being part of that as well. They kind of asked me my story and they did reenactment events of when I was a kid and my story on how I grew up and how I became an investigator and stuff like that. So it was it was a really cool experience. I enjoyed it. I've also done a couple other television documentaries. One just aired last December. It's of a local
Nice.
haunt here. And they won a bunch of awards for it. I was really proud of them, this production
Nice.
team. I was very proud of them. They worked really hard on it. And it's on a local haunt here called Buck Hill. And our team's pretty infamous for it. We've investigated it multiple times, but it's a haunted road. And so we were able to do that this year. So,
Nice.
it's been busy, but I enjoy educating. I enjoy telling the stories. I enjoy sharing my knowledge. One thing that I try to keep is my integrity and keep it, the truth. And so that's kind of one of my roles when I work with television or any production team. The first thing I'll say to them is, I call it as I see it.
Yeah.
As it happens. There's no exaggeration here. We're doing what's actually
Right.
happening. So if it's all about entertainment, I'm not interested.
Right. Yeah. In the fascinating shows like Paranormal Survivor and My Paranormal Nightmare and Paranormal 911 and all these other shows, they are shows that focus in on accounts of people's experiences.
Mhm.
Now, that's another big topic in the paranormal field, and this is something I like to talk about when I'm speaking in public is stuff is how paranormal experiences are different for everybody.
Exactly.
The example I use the most is there could be 10 people in a room, something can happen, you're going to get 10 different experiences. And people
Absolutely.
ask, well, how's that possible? because every paranormal experience is unique to that person and how they perceive it. And this is why I will never tell somebody, no matter how outrageous the story is, when they come to me and say, "Oh, I got to tell you what happened to me," I look at them and I just thank them for their story because who am
Mhm.
I to tell them that that is not possible? Because
Exactly.
that wasn't my experience. This
Mhm.
is their experience, and this is how they perceive that experience to be. No matter how crazy it might have sounded, uh, glass was flying everywhere, beds were lifting. Well, hey, if that's what they perceived happened, then that's what
Mhm.
happened. And these people out there that, especially on social media, excuse me, um, telling people, well, no, that can't possibly. How do you know? You weren't there. You
Yeah.
don't know what that person experienced.
One of
This is their experience, and this is what I like shows like Paranormal Survivor and Paranormal Nightmare is because they're just telling somebody else's story who normally doesn't have anybody else to tell the story to, but this network is willing to say, "Oh, well, that's pretty fascinating. We're going to air that."
yeah. My favorite thing to tell skeptics when they say to me things don't exist, "Prove to me it exists." I say, "Prove that it doesn't." When you can prove to me that it doesn't exist, then I'll
Right.
entertain that I'll prove to you that it does exist. Because, when I was younger, of course, I wanted to prove that it existed. I wanted to gather
Right.
evidence, but there's too many, situations, experiences, um communications. You know what I'm saying? That have happened to say that it can't exist. Like, how can anybody say that?
Right. Yeah, and like I said, but other people, like I said, my whole thing is when other people are out there telling people, "Well, I don't believe you." Well, it's not for you to believe. It's their
Mhm.
experience. Just let them tell it, and don't be upset because you don't believe it, or you might not think that the paranormal is real, or you just don't think that type of situation can really happen because it has not happened to you in a
Exactly.
way that you would be affected by it.
Exactly. Agreed.
But oh, I'm sorry. Just all of a sudden now, something feels like it's starting to choke me. Um, so let's talk about how did you become a member of the Canadian Supernatural Research Society? What kind of cases do they work on, and like how long have they been around?
I I founded the team, a group of family members, meaning friends, no actual family members, but some of the founding members are still with us. But I really wanted to help people, and I got together with some of my closest friends, and I said, "Look, this is what I think I want to do. Are you in?" And some of my best friends are 150% in, and said, "Okay, let's do this." And I said, "Okay, it's going to be tough. There's going to be learning curves. We're gonna do the best we can, but let's try and help people." And it started in 2013. I founded this team, and we've been going strong ever since. I mean, there's highs and lows. You know yourself, being Canadian, the haunted locations are not the same as in the States.
Right.
But we have a lot of residential cases and stuff like that. And so that's what we worked on. We did a lot of residential stuff. It's slowed down right now. When the call comes, we help whenever we can. But yeah, that's kind of how it started. It was just a group of people that wanted to learn, that work as a team.
Right.
We, it's a big buddy system, so we know where each other is, how each other works, what we're doing. We don't have to question each other on the equipment. Everybody has their own favorite piece of equipment. They're the little expert on that piece of equipment, so we all kind of
Right.
that's how we operate. Yeah.
And that's so amazing. I mean, when you can find a group of like-minded people who
Mhm.
you're comfortable working with, that makes a huge difference in this field. That is for sure. So we are coming close to the end of this hour already. I cannot believe it.
I
Like
know.
this has been an absolutely amazing time hanging out with you, getting
Yeah.
to know you even more.
Oh, thank
Uh,
you.
so this is your opportunity to talk a little bit about where people can find you, how people can get in contact with you, what do you have going on, what's coming up, maybe events that people can come out and personally meet you.
Yeah. So I am for everybody that's watching, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate all your support. Everybody, I've got a great support system, so I'm very appreciative of that. And that being said, I'm very busy and I'm very blessed and very grateful that I'm very busy, but I am very busy and behind on phone calls. I'm a one-man show and I cannot keep up with everybody. So I ask people to please be patient. But you can go onto my website, katieturnerpsychic.com. You can find me on Facebook, Katie Turner Sensitive Psychic Medium. You can send me a DM, but please be patient. Again, you can, my phone number and information is on that. Um, Coming up this year, I've got a few psychic events that I'm going to be doing. I have an event coming up at the beginning of May. We're going to be potentially doing an investigation before a public investigation, and then it's a holistic kind of wellness. We call it a fair, but basically it's all people, crystals, psychic, metaphysical come,
Okay.
and I'll be doing readings at that day. And there's a few other things that I'll be hosting. There's another event that's coming up. I can't give out details yet because it has not been finalized, but it will be another public event that we're hoping to do. And just working on investigations and doing my daily reads. If people are looking for private or group sessions, to please, give me a shout. And if I can help you out, I will. But that's what's going on.
Wow, truly amazing. Katie,
Yeah.
thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to talk to us here at the TPB
Yeah.
Nation. We appreciate you. I look forward to
Yeah.
hopefully crossing paths at some point this year. I
Absolutely.
know personally I had to back out of some of the events that I was planning this year. Most of those were all in the United States because of the current things that are going on, which we don't
Exactly.
talk about because it's not something that affects us personally, but it's just something that I'm not willing to put
I
myself
understand.
out there to be a part of.
Mhm.
So I truly am going to miss being around my American family for the most part this year. We're all keeping in touch, keeping an eye on what's going on. So pretty well, yeah, the Paranormal Voice is going to be sitting still unless there's a few Canadian events that pop up that we can be a part of. We're out there. Like I said, Michael John's out doing his thing. He's all back into professional wrestling again, which more excited for him. He it's been a passion of him. He's been since we were like 20 years old. So
Oh,
yeah, he
that's
never thought
great.
he would ever be back in wrestling again, but here he is. He's back part of a really amazing company. So he's doing that and looking for some more TV shows he's going to be looking forward to do. But he'll be back joining us as soon as he possibly can. So for me, you always know where to find me. Every Sunday, we're going to be right here at 8 p.m. Eastern with the Paranormal Voice. And you can catch me on my brand new show, Seeking Vibes Podcast, where we talk about inspiring stories and inspiring people in this world.
Wonderful.
I always have a pleasure talking about that because that people who suffer from mental illness and mental health are always truly inspiring to me. So we're trying to break the stigma over on my other channel about talking about mental health.
Amazing.
Uh,
Amazing.
so yeah, and so with that, Katie, thank you so much. Be safe out
Oh,
there, and everybody who tuned in tonight, thank you so much. From Michael John and myself, we love you, the TPV Nation. Remember, if you've not already subscribed to our channel, please, we are on the drive to 1,000 subscribers by the end of 2025. So we're going to see if we can make that happen. But we love bringing all the content that we get to talk to and amazing people just like Katie, we get to feature on
aw,
this show.
thank
So,
you.
guys, stay
Thank
tuned.
you for
We've got
having
some
me.
pretty amazing guests coming up throughout the month of April. People I've always wanted to talk to. We have a special treat coming up April 23rd. It is going to be a midday show for the Paranormal Voice. It is a Wednesday. I'm not going to announce the guest yet, but I'll tell you this show is going to be absolutely mind blowing. It is somebody we've been looking at, chasing after, hounding down to get him on our show, and we finally nailed it. And he's going to be talking to us all the way from the UK. But as soon as the details become available with that show, I will make that big announcement. But Katie, have yourself a good evening.
Thank
Everybody out there, have a
you.
good night. always, as we like to say, happy hauntings.
Thank you. Bye.
There.